The slap echoed through the marble foyer like a gunshot. How dare you! Maya's hand trembled at her side, the sting still fresh on her palm. Yuna's perfectly made-up face twisted in shock, one manicured hand pressed against her reddening cheek. The designer handbag she'd been holding clattered to the floor, spilling its contents across the polished marble. For 3 long seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Yuna's eyes narrowed into slits of pure venom. You touched me? Do you have any idea who I am? Do you know what you've just done? Maya's chest heaved, her dark skin flushed with adrenaline and rage. I know exactly what I've done, and I'd do it again. The click of expensive shoes on marble broke the moment. Jiwoo appeared at the top of the grand staircase, his tailored black suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. His cold eyes swept the scene below, taking in his girlfriend's shocked face, the scattered contents of her purse, and Maya standing there, with her fists clenched at her sides. What? He said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who didn't need to shout to be terrifying. Is happening in my house? But before we understand how it came to this, before we can comprehend why a maid would risk everything to strike the girlfriend of Seoul's most dangerous man, we need to go back. Back to 6 hours earlier, when Maya first arrived at the mansion thinking this was just another job. The morning had started like any other. Maya stood outside the towering gates of the Gangnam estate, her worn duffel bag clutched in both hands, trying not to let her nervousness show. The September air was crisp, carrying the scent of money and privilege that seemed to emanate from every building in this neighborhood. She'd been working in Seoul for 3 years now, ever since leaving Lagos, and she'd seen plenty of wealthy homes. But this? This was different. The gate swung open silently, and a severe-looking woman in a housekeeper's uniform gestured her forward. You're the new maid, the one from the agency? Yes, ma'am, Maya Okonkwo. The woman's eyes traveled up and down Maya's frame with clinical efficiency. I'm Mrs. Kang, head housekeeper. The agency said you have experience with high-profile households? 3 years, Maya confirmed, following Mrs. Kang up the pristine driveway. I've worked for 2 families in Gangnam and 1 in Itaewon. This household is different, Mrs. Kang said, her voice dropping. Mr. Park values discretion above all else. You see nothing. You hear nothing. You speak of nothing, understand? Maya nodded. She'd heard the rumors about Jiwoo Park, of course. Everyone had. The young man who'd taken over his father's business empire at 25 and turned it into something darker, more powerful. The newspapers called him a venture capitalist. The streets called him something else entirely. The mansion's interior was exactly what Maya expected. All marble and crystal, modern art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. What she didn't expect was the elderly woman sitting in the sunroom, hands folded in her lap, watching the koi pond with a gentle smile. That's Mrs. Park, Mrs. Kang whispered. The boss's mother. She's the only one who matters in this house. You understand? Whatever she needs, whenever she needs it, you drop everything. The old woman turned at their approach, and Maya felt something shift in her chest. Mrs. Park's face was lined with age, but her eyes held a warmth that seemed impossible in a house like this. She smiled, a real smile that reached those eyes, and said in accented English, You must be Maya. Please, come sit. If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. Maya spent that first morning learning the routines of the house. Mrs. Park, she discovered, was nothing like the cold, demanding matriarch she'd expected. The old woman insisted on helping fold laundry, refused to let anyone wait on her hand and foot, and spoke to the staff with genuine kindness. She told Maya about growing up in Busan, about meeting her husband at a church social, about watching her son grow from a gentle boy into something harder, sharper. He had to change, Mrs. Park said softly, her hands working steadily at folding a tablecloth. After his father died, the world tried to eat him alive. So he became someone in the world couldn't chew. You must be very proud of him, Maya ventured. Mrs. Park's smile turned sad. I'm proud of the man he could have been. I love the man he is. But proud? That's complicated. They worked in comfortable silence after that. Maya found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't expected. This job might actually be tolerable. Mrs. Park was kind. The pay was excellent, and as long as she kept her head down and her mouth shut, everything would be fine. Then, Yuna arrived. Maya heard her before she saw her. The roar of an expensive engine in the driveway, the slam of a car door, the sharp click, click, click of heels on marble. She looked up from the dining table she'd been polishing just as the front door burst open. Yuna swept in like a typhoon in Chanel. Everything about her screamed wealth and status. The perfectly styled hair, the designer outfit that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months, the oversized sunglasses that stayed on even indoors. She was beautiful in that manufactured soul way, all smooth skin and precise features. Where is he? Yuna demanded, not looking at Maya, not looking at anything except her phone screen. Where's Jiwoo? Mr. Park is in a meeting, Mrs. Kang materialized from somewhere, her voice professionally neutral. He'll be back this evening. Yuna made a disgusted sound. Of course he is. Always working, never any time for me. Her eyes finally lifted from her phone and landed on Maya. Who's this? The new maid, Miss Kim. Maya. Great, another one. Yuna waved a dismissive hand. Get me a coffee. Iced Americano, no sugar, extra shot. Maya glanced at Mrs. Kang, who gave a slight nod. Right away, Miss Kim. In the kitchen, Mrs. Kang whispered urgently. Miss Kim is particular. Don't take anything she says personally. Mr. Park tolerates her because, well, that's not our concern. Just do your job and stay out of her way. Maya prepared the coffee exactly as requested, her hands steady despite the irritation bubbling in her chest. She'd dealt with entitled people before. This was nothing new. She carried the coffee back to the living room, where Yuna had sprawled across a white leather sofa, still glued to her phone. Finally, Yuna said, not looking up. She took a sip and immediately grimaced. This is terrible. Did you even add the extra shot? Yes, Miss Kim. Exactly as you requested. Well, it tastes wrong. Make another one. Maya's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Of course. As she turned to leave, Mrs. Park appeared in the doorway of the living room, moving slowly with her cane. Yuna, dear, would you like to join me for lunch? I made kimchi jjigae, your favorite. Yuna didn't even look up from her phone. I don't eat that old people food anymore. Too much sodium. The words hung in the air like a slap. Maya watched Mrs. Park's face, saw the brief flash of hurt before the old woman masked it with a smile. Of course, dear, I understand. You young people have to watch your health. Whatever. Yuna's fingers flew across her phone screen. Can someone turn up the AC? It's like a sauna in here. Maya made the second coffee, this one identical to the first, and delivered it without a word. Yuna took a sip, shrugged, and went back to her phone. Maya retreated to the kitchen where Mrs. Park stood at the stove, stirring the stew she'd made with such care. She's just busy, Mrs. Park said, quietly, though Maya hadn't said anything. Young people these days, always so busy. Maya wanted to say something, wanted to point out that being busy wasn't an excuse for rudeness, but she bit her tongue. Not her place, not her business. She'd learned that lesson the hard way in her previous jobs. The afternoon crawled by in mounting tension. Yuna stayed sprawled on the sofa, occasionally barking orders for water, for snacks, for someone to adjust the blinds because the sun was in her eyes. Each request was delivered without a please or thank you, without even the basic courtesy of looking at whoever she was speaking to. Maya felt her anger building with each dismissive command, but she kept her face neutral, her voice professional. Around 4 o'clock, Mrs. Park appeared again, this time carrying a small plate of fresh-cut fruit. Yuna, I thought you might like some melon. It's very sweet this season. Yuna finally looked up from her phone, her expression annoyed. I told you, I'm watching what I eat. Fruit has too much sugar. Just a little piece? I picked the best one at the market this morning. Are you deaf? Yuna's voice rose, sharp and cutting. I said no. God, you're so pushy. This is why Jiwoo never wants to come home. Maya's hands froze on the glass she'd been washing. She turned slowly to see Mrs. Park standing there, the plate of fruit trembling slightly in her hands. The old woman's face had gone very still, very quiet. I'm sorry, Mrs. Park said softly. I didn't mean to bother you. Well, you did. You always do. Yuna stood up, stretching. I'm going to take a nap in Jiwoo's room. Don't disturb me. She swept past Mrs. Park without another glance, leaving the old woman standing there with her plate of carefully cut fruit. Maya watched as Mrs. Park's shoulders sagged as she shuffled back to the kitchen and quietly scraped the fruit into the trash. Mrs. Park, Maya started, but the old woman shook her head. It's fine, child. She's young and stressed. I remember being young. But her voice cracked on the last word, and Maya saw her wipe quickly at her eyes before turning back to the stove. The anger that had been simmering in Maya's chest all afternoon crystallized into something harder, something dangerous. She'd been raised to respect her elders, to honor those who came before. Watching this kind, gentle woman being treated like an inconvenience in her own home made Maya's blood boil. But she kept quiet. She kept working because she needed this job, and picking a fight with the boss's girlfriend on her first day would be beyond stupid. The sun was setting when Jiwoo Park finally came home. Maya heard the security detail first, the low murmur of voices and the beep of the gate system. Then the front door opened and he walked in, flanked by two men in dark suits who peeled off to stand guard at the entrance. Jiwoo Park was not what Maya expected. She'd pictured someone older, harder, scarred by the life everyone whispered about. Instead, he looked like he could have stepped out of a corporate magazine. Tall and lean, in an impeccably tailored suit, his face handsome in that sharp, angular way, his dark hair swept back from his forehead. Only his eyes gave him away. They were cold, assessing, missing nothing. His gaze swept the foyer and landed on Maya. You're new. It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. Yes, sir, Maya Okonkwo. I started this morning. He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded once and turned toward the stairs. Where's my mother? In the sunroom, sir. He changed direction without another word, his expensive shoes silent on the marble floor. Maya watched him go, then returned to her work. Whatever happened next was between Jiwoo and his mother, not her concern. Except it became her concern 20 minutes later when raised voices echoed from the second floor. Maya was in the hallway folding linens when Yuna's voice cut through the house, like a knife. I don't care what she wants, Jiwoo. I'm tired of her constantly hovering, constantly trying to feed me things, constantly acting like she owns this place. She does own this place. Jiwoo's voice was quieter but carried clearly. My father left it to her. Then maybe it's time to put her somewhere else, a nice facility where people can take care of her properly. She's getting old, Jiwoo. She forgets things. Last week, she called me by your aunt's name. That's not happening. Why not? Because you feel guilty? Because you think if you keep her here in this big house, it makes up for the fact that you're never around? God, Jiwoo, wake up. She'd be better off with professionals, and we'd finally have some privacy. The sound of a door slamming ended the argument. Maya stood frozen in the hallway, her hands gripping the linen so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Put her somewhere else? Mrs. Park, who loved this house, who tended the gardens herself, who still set her husband's place at the table on his birthday? The audacity of it made Maya's vision blur with rage. That evening, dinner was a tense affair. Jiwoo sat at the head of the table, Mrs. Park to his right, Yuna to his left. Maya and Mrs. Kang served the meal in silence. Bulgogi, japchae, various banchan that Mrs. Park had prepared herself that afternoon. "This looks wonderful, Mother," Jiwoo said, and the old woman's face lit up. "I made your favorite, the japchae recipe from your grandmother." Yuna picked at her food, pushing it around her plate. "Is there anything without MSG? My nutritionist says it's terrible for your skin." "Everything is homemade," Mrs. Park said gently. "No MSG, just natural ingredients." "Right." Yuna's tone made it clear she didn't believe it. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. "Yuna," Jiwoo's voice held a note of warning. "Put it away." She sighed dramatically but complied, setting the phone face down on the table. "Fine, but I can't stay long anyway. I have a thing." "What thing?" "A party in Itaewon, Mina's birthday. I need you here tonight. I have people coming over. Then I'll be back before they arrive." Yuna stood up, her meal barely touched. "I'll get ready now." She left without excusing herself, without thanking Mrs. Park for the food. Jiwoo watched her go, his jaw tight, but he said nothing. He turned to his mother instead, his expression softening fractionally. "It's delicious, Mother. Thank you." Mrs. Park beamed at him, reaching over to pat his hand. "You work too hard, my son. You need to eat more, rest more." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You look tired. When was the last time you slept a full night?" "Mother, and this one you're with," Mrs. Park's voice dropped, became urgent. "She's not right for you, Jiwoo. She doesn't see you. She doesn't see any of us." Jiwoo's face went carefully blank. "That's not your concern." "You're my son. Everything about you is my concern." Mrs. Park's eyes filled with tears. "Your father would—" "Don't." The word came out sharp, cutting. "Don't talk about what father would want. He's not here." The silence that followed was suffocating. Mrs. Park withdrew her hand, her face crumpling slightly before she smoothed it into a smile. "You're right. I'm sorry. I overstepped." Maya, standing in the corner with a water pitcher, wanted to scream, wanted to grab Jiwoo by his expensive lapels and shake him. His mother was trying to protect him, trying to show him the truth, and he shut her down like she was a stranger on the street. After dinner, things escalated rapidly. Yuna emerged from upstairs in a skin-tight dress and heels that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. She was reapplying lipstick in the hallway mirror when Mrs. Park appeared, moving slowly with her cane. "Yuna, dear, before you go, I wanted to talk to you about something." Yuna didn't turn around. "I'm kind of in a hurry, Mrs. Park." "It will only take a moment." The old woman's voice was hesitant, nervous. "I heard, that is, I wanted to say, I know I can be a bit much sometimes. If I've been overbearing, I apologize. I just want you and Jiwoo to be happy." Now Yuna did turn, one perfectly shaped eyebrow raised. "Seriously? You're apologizing to me?" "I just thought—" "You thought what? That saying sorry would make me suddenly enjoy your constant interference? Your judgment every time I walk in the room?" Yuna's voice rose with each word. "You want to know the truth, Mrs. Park? You make this house unbearable. Always hovering, always watching, always trying to poison Jiwoo against me with your traditional values and your martyr routine." Mrs. Park's face had gone white. "I would never—" "Save it." Yuna grabbed her purse. "I don't have time for this. Some of us have actual lives outside this mausoleum." She spun on her heel and nearly collided with Maya, who'd been frozen in the doorway. For a moment, their eyes met. Maya saw the flash of guilt in Yuna's expression, quickly buried under irritation. "Move," Yuna snapped, pushing past her. Maya didn't move. She stood there watching Mrs. Park, watching the old woman's hands shake as she clutched her cane, watching the tears finally spill over and track down her weathered cheeks. "Mrs. Park," Maya whispered, moving to her side. "Don't listen to her. She's cruel and selfish and—" "She's right, though," Mrs. Park said softly. I do hover. I do judge. I just want my son to be with someone who loves him. Someone who sees how good he is underneath everything. Is that so wrong? Maya wanted to say no. It wasn't wrong at all. She wanted to say that Jiwoo should be grateful to have a mother who cared so deeply, but the words stuck in her throat because Mrs. Park was crying now. Really crying, her whole body shaking with it. Mrs. Kang appeared and gently guided Mrs. Park toward her room. Come on, let's get you some tea, Maya. Finish up in the kitchen. Maya nodded mutely and returned to her work, but her hands were shaking with rage. The nerve of that woman, the absolute nerve of her to speak to Mrs. Park like that, to make her feel small in her own home. An hour later, Maya was still seething as she wiped down the kitchen counters. She heard the front door open, heard Yuna's voice saying something to the driver. Then she heard the car pull away, and the house fell into tense silence. She was putting away the last of the dishes when she heard Mrs. Park cry out. The sound was sharp, pained, and Maya was moving before she consciously decided to, her feet carrying her toward the sunroom where the sound had come from. Mrs. Park was on the floor, her cane a few feet away, trying to push herself up. I'm fine, I just lost my balance. Don't move, Maya said, dropping to her knees beside the old woman. Let me help you. Are you hurt? Just my pride. Mrs. Park tried to laugh, but it came out as a sob. I can't even walk in my own house anymore without falling. Maybe Yuna is right. Maybe I should go somewhere with nurses who can watch me all the time. Don't say that, Maya said fiercely, helping Mrs. Park into a chair. Don't let that woman make you doubt yourself. You're not a burden. This is your home. Mrs. Park looked at Maya with red-rimmed eyes. You're kind to say so, but kindness doesn't change reality. I'm old. I'm in the way. My son is building a life, and I'm just here. A reminder of the past he's trying to forget. That's not true, isn't it? Mrs. Park's smile was unbearably sad. He used to tell me everything, you know. When he was young, he'd come home from school and talk for hours about his friends, his dreams, his fears. Now he barely looks at me, because when he does, he sees his father. He sees everything he's lost. Maya didn't know what to say to that. She helped Mrs. Park to her room, made sure she was settled with water and her medication, then retreated to the kitchen where Mrs. Kang was waiting. Don't get involved, Mrs. Kang said quietly. I can see it in your face what you're thinking. Don't. Someone needs to stand up to her. Not you, not if you want to keep this job. Mrs. Kang's expression was sympathetic but firm. I've seen it before. New staff come in, see how Miss Kim treats Mrs. Park. Get righteous. They speak up, they interfere. Then they're gone. Mr. Park doesn't tolerate drama in his household. So we just let her be cruel? We do our jobs and we keep our heads down. That's how you survive in a house like this. Maya wanted to argue, but she knew Mrs. Kang was right. So she finished her shift, gathered her things, and left for her small apartment in Hongdae, her mind churning with anger and helplessness. Comment below and let me know what you think Maya should do. Should she have spoken up? What would you do in her position? The next morning, Maya arrived at the mansion with a sense of dread, sitting heavy in her stomach. She'd barely slept, kept awake by the image of Mrs. Park crying, by Yuna's cruel words, by her own powerlessness. But she needed this job. She couldn't afford to lose it over someone else's drama. Mrs. Kang met her at the door, her face grim. Mrs. Park didn't sleep well last night. Check on her after you finish the breakfast prep, will you? She likes you. Maya nodded and got to work. The kitchen was peaceful in the early morning light, and she fell into the rhythm of chopping vegetables for the soup Mrs. Park had requested. She was so focused that she didn't hear Jiwoo enter until he spoke. You're Maya. She jumped, nearly dropping the knife. Jiwoo stood in the doorway in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. Up close, Maya could see the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. Yes, sir. Can I get you something? My mother spoke highly of you last night. He moved further into the kitchen, pouring himself coffee from the pot. Maya had made. She said you were kind to her. Maya wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she just nodded and went back to chopping. She also told me what Yuna said to her. Maya's knife stilled. She looked up to find Jiwoo watching her with those cold, assessing eyes. I see. He took a sip of coffee. What do you think of my girlfriend? The question was a trap. Maya knew it instantly. Say the wrong thing and she'd be out the door by lunch. But something in Jiwoo's expression, some flicker of genuine curiosity, made her take a chance. I think, Maya said carefully, choosing each word like stepping stones across a river, that your mother deserves respect in her own home. I think kindness costs nothing. And I think sometimes people show us who they are, and we should believe them. Jiwoo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. My mother also said I should be grateful to have someone who cares enough to tell me hard truths. Your mother is a wise woman. She is. He set down his coffee cup. She's also lonely and sad, and I don't know how to fix that. The admission hung in the air between them. Maya saw, for just a moment, not the cold mafia boss, but a son who loved his mother and didn't know how to protect her from his own choices. Maybe start by listening to her, Maya suggested quietly. Really listening. Jiwoo studied her for a long moment, then nodded once and left without another word. Maya returned to her chopping, her heart racing. She'd just given relationship advice to one of Seoul's most dangerous men. Either that was the bravest or stupidest thing she'd ever done. The morning passed without incident. Mrs. Park seemed brighter when Maya brought her breakfast, insisted on helping fold laundry again despite Maya's protests. They worked together in comfortable silence, and Maya felt some of the tension from the previous day ease. Then, just before noon, Yuna's car roared up the driveway. She swept into the house like she owned it, designer sunglasses on, a shopping bag from Chanel dangling from one wrist. Maya was in the foyer arranging flowers when Yuna breezed past without acknowledgement. Where's Jiwoo? Yuna demanded of Mrs. Kang. In his study. He asked not to be disturbed. I'm not a disturbance, I'm his girlfriend. Yuna headed for the stairs, then paused and turned back. Oh, and tell the cook I want lunch in an hour. Something light. Salad. No dressing. Mrs. Park is the one who cooks, Mrs. Kang said carefully, and she's resting right now. Yuna's expression soured. Of course she is. Fine. Order something. I don't care. She disappeared upstairs, and Maya exchanged a look with Mrs. Kang. This was going to be a long day. It got worse when Mrs. Park emerged from her room an hour later, having heard that Yuna was home. The old woman had changed into a nice hanbok, had done her hair, clearly making an effort. She'd also prepared a tray of cookies, traditional yagwa that she must have been up making before dawn. I thought we could have tea, Mrs. Park said hopefully when she found Yuna in the living room. I made your favorite cookies. Do you remember? You used to love these when you first started dating Jiwoo. Yuna looked up from her phone with barely concealed annoyance. I told you, I don't eat sweets anymore. Just one? I made them special. Mrs. Park, seriously? Yuna's voice had an edge to it. I said no. How many times do I have to tell you things before you get it through your head? Mrs. Park's hands trembled on the tray. I just thought I was trying to be nice. You were trying to guilt trip me, like you always do. Yuna stood up, tossing her phone onto the couch. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Jiwoo. Her raised voice brought Jiwoo from his study. He appeared in the doorway, his expression thunderous. What's going on? Your mother is harassing me again, Yuna said, gesturing at Mrs. Park. She won't take no for an answer. She keeps pushing food on me, keeps trying to have these little bonding moments I don't want. It's suffocating. Jiwoo's gaze moved to his mother, standing there with her tray of cookies, her face crumpling. Mother, maybe Yuna's right. Maybe you should give her some space. The words landed like physical blows. Maya, standing in the hallway within earshot, saw Mrs. Park's face go white, saw the hope drain out of her eyes. Yes, of course, I'm sorry. Mrs. Park's voice was barely a whisper. She turned to leave, the tray still in her shaking hands. That's when Yuna made her fatal mistake. Finally, she muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe now we can have some peace. God knows she's been nothing but a burden since I started coming here. Old, clingy, pathetic. What did you just say? Maya's voice cut through the room like a blade. Everyone turned. Maya stood in the hallway doorway, her hands clenched, into fists at her sides. She'd heard enough. She'd seen enough. Something in her had snapped. Excuse me? Yuna's eyebrows shot up. Did the help just interrupt me? I asked what you just said. Maya took a step forward. About Mrs. Park. Maya. Mrs. Kang appeared behind her, voice urgent. Don't. But Maya was beyond listening. She moved into the living room, her eyes locked on Yuna. You called her pathetic, a burden, this woman who has shown you nothing but kindness, who cooks for you, who tries so hard to make you feel welcome in her home. Her home? Yuna laughed, sharp and cruel. This is Jiwoo's home. She just lives here on charity. This house belonged to her husband, Maya said, her voice rising. She raised her son here. She's earned every inch of it. You're the charity case, a pretty face who contributes nothing except cruelty and disrespect. How dare you? Yuna hissed, taking a step toward Maya. Do you know who you're talking to? I could have you fired. With one phone call, deported even. Who do you think you are? I'm someone who knows how to treat people with basic human decency, Maya shot back, which is apparently more than you can manage. Maya, that's enough. Jiwoo's voice was cold. You're out of line. Am I? Maya turned to face him. Or am I the only one in this house willing to say what everyone else is thinking? Your mother is a saint for putting up with this. She never got to finish the sentence, because that's when Mrs. Park, who'd been standing frozen near the door, suddenly swayed. The tray slipped from her hands, cookies scattering across the floor. She grabbed for her cane and missed, stumbling backward. Maya was moving before anyone else could react, catching Mrs. Park before she hit the ground. The old woman's face was gray, her breathing shallow. Call an ambulance! Maya shouted. Now! Jiwoo was already pulling out his phone, barking orders. Mrs. Kang rushed to Maya's side with cushions. And Yuna stood there, her face a mask of shock and something that might have been fear. The paramedics arrived within minutes. Benefits of living in Gangnam and having the park name. They loaded Mrs. Park onto a stretcher, Jiwoo climbing into the ambulance with them. He looked back once at Maya, his expression unreadable, before the doors closed and they sped away. The house fell into stunned silence. Mrs. Kang began picking up the scattered cookies, her movements mechanical, and Yuna finally seemed to realize the gravity of what had just happened. She's fine, right? Yuna's voice was small. She just fainted. Old people do that. Maya rounded on her. She fainted because you've been tormenting her for months, because you made her feel unwelcome and unwanted in her own home, because you're selfish and cruel and you don't deserve— Shut up, Yuna's face flushed red. You don't know anything about me, about my relationship with Jiwoo, about any of this. You're just some random maid who's been here for 5 minutes. I know enough, Maya said coldly. I know that woman is in an ambulance right now because of you. The words hung between them like a verdict. Yuna's face crumpled, and for just a moment, Maya saw something that might have been genuine remorse. But it vanished quickly, replaced by defensiveness and anger. Get out, Yuna said. You're fired. You can't fire me. This isn't your house. It will be, Yuna shot back. When Jiwoo and I get married, this will all be mine, and the first thing I'm doing is getting rid of you and putting that old woman in a home where she belongs. The words were like gasoline on Maya's already burning rage. Before she could think, before she could stop herself, Before she could remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea, Maya was moving. Her hand connected with Yuna's cheek in a slap that echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. Which brings us back to where we started. To that frozen moment. To Yuna's shocked face and Maya's trembling hand and the sound of Jiwoo's expensive shoes on the marble stairs. What? Jiwoo said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who didn't need to shout to be terrifying. Is happening in my house? Maya turned to face him, her chin raised. There was no point in denying it, no point in making excuses. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I slapped her, Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline singing through her veins. She was saying terrible things about your mother, about putting her in a home, and I couldn't listen to it anymore. She assaulted me. Yuna found her voice, her hand still pressed to her reddening cheek. In front of witnesses. I want her arrested. I want her. You want what? Jiwoo's voice cut through Yuna's tirade like ice. He descended the rest of the stairs slowly, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. You want the woman arrested for defending my mother? Yuna blinked. What? You heard me. Jiwoo finally looked at his girlfriend, and his expression was arctic. Do you think I don't know what's been happening? Do you think the staff doesn't tell me everything? I know what you said to my mother yesterday. I know about every dismissive comment, every cruel remark, every time you've made her feel small. Jiwoo, that's not... I didn't mean... You told her she should be put in a facility. His voice was soft, deadly. You told her she was pathetic. Yuna's face drained of color. I was upset. I didn't mean it literally. Didn't you? Jiwoo moved closer to her, and Maya saw Yuna take an involuntary step back. Because from where I'm standing, you meant every word. You've been trying to push her out since the beginning. Make her feel unwelcome so she'd leave on her own. That's not true. Don't lie to me, Yuna. I've built my entire life on being able to read people, on knowing when I'm being played. And you? He laughed, harsh and bitter. You've been playing me from day one. The room felt too small suddenly, the air too thick. Maya stood frozen, watching this confrontation unfold, not sure if she should leave or stay. Jiwoo, please, Yuna's voice cracked. I love you. Everything I've done has been for us, for our future together. No, Jiwoo's voice was flat. Everything you've done has been for yourself, for the lifestyle, the status, the money. You never loved me. You loved what I could give you. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. He pulled out his phone, sent a text. My driver will take you home. Pack your things. I don't want to see you here again. Yuna's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally desperate calculation. You're going to regret this. You're throwing away our relationship because some maid got in your head? Because I wasn't nice enough to your mother? I'm ending this because you showed me exactly who you are. Jiwoo's expression was carved from stone. And I choose to believe you. The driver appeared at the door. Yuna looked between Jiwoo and Maya, her eyes filling with tears that might or might not have been genuine. Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize what you've lost. I won't, Jiwoo said simply. Yuna grabbed her designer bag and stalked out, her heels clicking furiously on the marble. The door slammed behind her, and then there was silence. Maya waited for Jiwoo to turn his anger on her, to fire her for overstepping, for hitting his girlfriend even if he'd just broken up with her. But instead, he just looked tired. My mother's fine, he said quietly. They're keeping her overnight for observation, but it was just stress and exhaustion. She'll be home tomorrow. I'm glad, Maya said. I'm sorry for... Don't. He held up a hand. Don't apologize for defending her. I should have done it myself months ago. I knew how Yuna treated her. I didn't want to see it. Didn't want to admit I'd chosen wrong. Then why didn't you end it sooner? Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment, When he spoke, his voice was raw. Because it was easier to have someone who didn't ask questions about my work. Someone who didn't care about the parts of my life that are dark. My mother looks at me and sees all the ways I've failed to be the man my father was. Yuna looked at me and didn't care who I was, as long as the money kept coming. Your mother doesn't think you failed, Maya said softly. She's proud of you. She just misses you. I know. He rubbed his face with both hands. I know that. And yet I keep choosing everything else over her. The business, the reputation, even Yuna, because being the man my mother wants me to be feels impossible. So I stopped trying. The admission hung in the air between them. Maya saw in that moment not the cold mafia boss, but the boy Mrs. Park had described. The one who used to talk about his dreams before the world forced him to become something harder. It's not too late, Maya ventured. To try again. Jiwoo looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. You're either very brave or very stupid, you know that? Slapping my girlfriend in my house. Ex-girlfriend, Maya corrected, then immediately wondered if she'd gone too far. But Jiwoo laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face. Ex-girlfriend, he agreed. Mrs. Kang was right about you. She said you had fire, said you reminded her of my mother when she was young. Your mother was a troublemaker? According to my father's stories, she once chased a man out of her village with a broom because he disrespected her mother. Jiwoo's smile was genuine now. Sounds familiar. Maya felt her own lips twitch. I didn't have a broom handy. Your hands seem to work fine, he sobered. I should fire you, you know, for assaulting someone in my home. That's the sensible thing to do. Maya's heart sank. I understand, but I'm not going to. Jiwoo straightened, his business, persona sliding back into place. Because my mother needs someone around who actually gives a damn about her. Someone who'll call out the bullshit when they see it. Think you can handle that? Yes, sir, Maya said, relief flooding through her. Good. I'm going back to the hospital to sit with my mother. Hold down the fort here. And Maya? He paused at the door. Thank you for being braver than I was. Then he was gone, leaving Maya standing in the foyer with her heart still racing and her hands still tingling from the slap. Mrs. Kang appeared from wherever she'd been hiding during the confrontation, her expression somewhere between horrified and impressed. Well, Mrs. Kang said, that was certainly something. I'm fired, aren't I? Are you kidding? You just did what everyone in this house has wanted to do for months. You're a legend now. Mrs. Kang grinned. Also, you might want to ice that hand. Looks like it's swelling. Maya looked down at her right hand and realized Mrs. Kang was right. It was red and starting to ache. Totally worth it, she thought. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Staff members who'd been keeping their distance suddenly found excuses to talk to Maya, to pat her on the shoulder, to bring her tea and snacks. The story of the slap spread through the household like wildfire, each retelling adding new dramatic details. That evening, Jiwoo returned with Mrs. Park. The old woman looked frail but alert, her eyes bright when she saw Maya. There's my hero, Mrs. Park said warmly, reaching out to take Maya's hand. Jiwoo told me what you did. I'm sorry if I overstepped. Sorry? Mrs. Park squeezed her hand. Child, you defended my honor. That's not overstepping. That's family. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Family. When was the last time she'd felt that? Not since leaving Lagos, not in all her years in Seoul. Always the outsider, always the help. Now, Mrs. Park said, settling into her favorite chair in the sunroom. I want to hear everything. Don't leave out a single detail. So Maya told her, with Jiwoo listening from the doorway. She described Yuna's cruel words, her own rising anger, the moment when her hand seemed to move of its own accord. Mrs. Park listened with rapt attention, occasionally gasping or squeezing Maya's hand. When Maya finished, Mrs. Park was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at her son, still standing in the doorway. Jiwoo, she said softly, come here. He moved to her side and she reached up to cup his face in her hands, the way she must have when he was a child. I'm proud of you, she said, for letting her go, for choosing what's right. Your father would be proud too. Jiwoo's carefully controlled expression cracked, just for a moment. I'm sorry, Mother, for not seeing it sooner, for making you feel unwelcome in your own home. You're here now, Mrs. Park said simply. That's what matters. Maya slipped away quietly, giving them their moment. So Tomai found Mrs. Kang in the kitchen, preparing dinner, and pitched in without being asked. They worked in comfortable silence, and Maya felt something settle in her chest. This job, this house, these people. Maybe she'd found something here worth fighting for. 3 days later, Maya was dusting the library when Jiwoo appeared in the doorway. She'd barely seen him since the incident, though she'd heard he'd been spending more time at home, eating dinner with his mother, even helping her in the garden. Maya, do you have a moment? She set down the duster. Of course, sir. He moved into the room, hands in his pockets, looking almost uncomfortable. I wanted to thank you again, properly this time. What you did, standing up for my mother when I wouldn't, that took real courage. Anyone would have done the same. No, Jiwoo said firmly. They wouldn't have. Most people see someone like Yuna, someone with money and status and connections, and they back down. You didn't. You saw someone being cruel and you stopped it. That's rare. Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. My mother wants to give you a raise, Jiwoo continued. I told her I'd already taken care of it. Your salary is being doubled, effective immediately. Sir, that's not necessary. It is. He smiled slightly. Besides, my mother's already planning how to spend your afternoons. She wants you to help her restart her garden club. Apparently, she used to host it here before my father died, and now she wants to bring it back. The image of Mrs. Park, surrounded by friends and flowers, made Maya smile. I'd like that. Good. Jiwoo moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Maya, if anyone else treats my mother with disrespect, you have my permission to slap them too. He was grinning when he said it, and Maya couldn't help but laugh. I'll try to use words first this time, sir. Probably wise. If you've made it this far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Drop a comment and let me know what part had you on the edge of your seat. And stick around because there's one more thing you need to hear. 2 weeks later, Maya was helping Mrs. Park arrange flowers in the sunroom when the doorbell rang. Mrs. Kang appeared moments later, her expression uncertain. Miss Kim is here, she said quietly. She says she needs to speak with Mrs. Park. The room went silent. Mrs. Park's hand stilled on the flower stems, and Maya felt her own muscles tense. Should I send her away? Mrs. Kang asked. Mrs. Park was quiet for a long moment, then shook her head. No, let her in. Are you sure? Maya asked. After everything? I'm sure. Mrs. Park set down the flowers and straightened her shoulders. Sometimes people need a chance to apologize. I should give her that chance. Yuna appeared in the doorway moments later, looking very different from the last time Maya had seen her. No designer clothes, no heavy makeup, just jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back, her face bare and tired. Mrs. Park, Yuna said quietly, thank you for seeing me. Come in, dear. Sit down. Yuna moved into the room but stayed standing, her hands twisting together. I don't deserve your kindness. I was horrible to you, cruel and dismissive, and I'm so sorry. Mrs. Park studied her for a moment. Why are you here, Yuna? Because I need you to know that I regret it. All of it. Yuna's voice cracked. I was so focused on what I wanted, on securing my place in Jiwoo's life, that I forgot to be a decent human being. You were nothing but kind to me, and I threw it back in your face. Yes, Mrs. Park agreed calmly. You did. The blunt acknowledgement seemed to hit Yuna hard. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I know you probably hate me. I know Jiwoo won't take me back. I needed to say it. To tell you that you deserved better. That I was wrong." Mrs. Park was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, moving slowly to where Yuna stood. "I don't hate you, child. I'm disappointed in you. There's a difference." "I don't know which is worse," Yuna whispered. "Hate is easier," Mrs. Park said. "Disappointment means I still see the potential for you to be better. And I do. I see a young woman who made mistakes but came here to own them. That takes strength." Yuna finally broke, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Mrs. Park pulled her into a gentle hug, and Maya felt her own throat tighten. This woman, after everything Yuna had done, still had room in her heart for forgiveness. That was grace Maya wasn't sure she could ever match. "It's okay," Mrs. Park murmured. "It's okay." When Yuna finally pulled back, wiping at her eyes, she looked at Maya. "I owe you an apology, too. For the things I said, the way I treated you. You were right about everything." Maya nodded slowly. "Apology accepted." "I should go," Yuna said, stepping back. "Thank you again for seeing me, Mrs. Park. I won't bother you again." "Yuna," Mrs. Park's voice stopped her at the door. "Take care of yourself, and next time, try to remember that kindness costs nothing." Yuna nodded, unable to speak, and fled. After she left, Mrs. Park sank back into her chair with a heavy sigh. "That was hard." "You didn't have to forgive her," Maya said quietly. "I didn't forgive her," Mrs. Park corrected gently. "Not fully. That will take time. But I gave her a chance to apologize and to start making amends. That's all any of us can do. Give people chances and hope they take them." Maya helped Mrs. Park finish the flower arrangements, and they worked in peaceful silence. Through the window, she could see Jiwoo in the garden, actually pulling weeds alongside the gardener. He looked up, caught Maya's eye, and smiled. It was a small moment, insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But Maya felt it settle in her chest like a promise. This house, with its complicated history and its healing wounds, had become something more than just a job. It had become a home, and when Mrs. Park reached over to pat her hand, murmuring, "Thank you, my dear girl," Maya knew she'd made the right choice. Even if that choice involved slapping one of Seoul's most prominent socialites. Some things, she thought, were worth the risk. The afternoon sun slanted through the sunroom windows, painting everything gold. In the kitchen, Mrs. Kang was humming as she prepared dinner. In the garden, Jiwoo was learning to tend the roses his mother loved. And here in the sunroom, Maya and Mrs. Park arranged flowers together. Two women from different worlds who'd found common ground in standing up for what was right. It wasn't a perfect ending. There would be more challenges, more complications. Life in the Park household would never be simple. But it was real, and it was theirs, and that was enough. That evening, over dinner, Mrs. Park announced she'd successfully reformed her garden club. The first meeting would be next week, and she expected everyone, including Jiwoo, to attend. "I don't do garden clubs, Mother," Jiwoo protested. "You do now," Mrs. Park said firmly. "And you're bringing cookies. Maya's teaching me to make Nigerian chin-chin. We'll serve both cultures." Jiwoo looked at Maya, who shrugged innocently. "Your mother's very persuasive." "I'm learning that," he said dryly. But he was smiling, and when he caught his mother's eye across the table, Maya saw something pass between them. Understanding, reconciliation, love that had always been there but got lost for a while. "Fine," Jiwoo said. "Garden club it is, but I'm not wearing an apron." "We'll see about that," Mrs. Park said, and everyone laughed. Later, as Maya cleaned up the kitchen, Mrs. Kang appeared at her elbow. "You know, when you first started here, I thought you'd last maybe a week. You had too much fire, too much opinion. And now?" Mrs. Kang smiled. Now I think this house needs more people like you. People who care enough to fight for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs them something. It cost me a very sore hand, Maya joked, flexing her fingers. Worth it, though, wasn't it? Maya thought about Mrs. Park's smile at dinner, about Jiwoo's laughter, about the way the house felt lighter now, as if a dark cloud had finally lifted. Yeah, she said, definitely worth it. That night, before heading home, Maya stopped by Mrs. Park's room to say goodnight. The old woman was in her favorite chair, looking through a photo album. Maya, come see. Mrs. Park patted the seat beside her. This was Jiwoo when he was little. See how he's smiling? That's the boy I remember, the one I'm starting to see again. Maya looked at the photo of a young Jiwoo, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a muddy frog with pride. It was hard to reconcile that boy with the cold, controlled man who'd walked through the door 2 weeks ago. You brought him back to me, Mrs. Park said softly. With one brave, foolish slap, you reminded him what matters. You reminded both of us. I just couldn't stand by and watch anymore, Maya admitted. I know, that's what made it brave. Mrs. Park closed the album and took Maya's hand. My grandmother used to say that sometimes the smallest people make the biggest waves. You're my wave, Maya. You came into this house and changed everything. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for giving me the chance. Thank you for taking it. Mrs. Park squeezed her hand. Now, go home and rest. Tomorrow we start planning the garden club, and I have big ideas. Maya laughed and headed for the door. She paused at the threshold and looked back. Mrs. Park had returned to her photo album, a soft smile on her face, no longer looking sad or lonely or small. She looked like what she was, the matriarch of the house, surrounded by love and respect. As Maya stepped out into the cool, evening air, she thought about how quickly life could change. 2 weeks ago, she'd been just another maid in another wealthy household, keeping her head down and her opinions to herself. Now she was family, part of something bigger than herself, and all it took was one moment of courage, one refusal to look away from injustice, one slap that echoed through a mansion and changed everything. Maya smiled to herself as she walked to the bus stop. Her mother back in Lagos would probably have a heart attack when she told her this story. But she'd also be proud, because she'd raised Maya to stand up for what was right, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, to be brave even when it was terrifying. The bus arrived and Maya climbed aboard, already thinking about tomorrow, about helping Mrs. Park with the garden club, about teaching her to make chin-chin, about whatever new adventure this strange, wonderful family would bring. Behind her, the Park mansion gleamed in the evening, light, no longer cold and imposing, but warm and welcoming. A home, finally, for all of them. And if anyone else came along trying to disrespect Mrs. Park, well, Maya's left hand was still perfectly functional. She grinned at the thought and settled back in her seat for the ride home, her heart full and her conscience clear. Some risks, she'd learned, were absolutely worth taking.